Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing our reading of Friedrich Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra book. It is witty, it is insightful, it is perplexing at times, but it makes us think. And not only does it make us think, it makes us think outside the box and reflect, which is something every philosopher should enjoy. Let's begin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We're on page, it's like paragraph number 8, page 201. Bismillah. When the water is spanned by planks, when bridges and railings leap over the river, and verily those are not believed who say everything is in flux, even the blockheads contradict them. How now, say the blockheads, everything should be in flux. After all, planks and railings are over the river. Whatever is over the river is firm, and the values of things, the bridges, the concepts, all good and evil, all that is firm. But when the hard winter comes, the river animal tamer, then even the most quick-witted learn mistrust. And verily, not only the blockheads then say, does not everything stand still? The water underneath is still moving, but the ice on the top is still. So, it doesn't actually stand still. At bottom, everything stands still. That is truly a winter doctrine, and a good thing for sterile times. Sterile times. Winter is a sterile time. A fine comfort for hibernators and hearth squatters. At bottom, everything stands still. Against this, the thawing wind preaches. The thawing wind, a bull that is no plowing bull, a raging bull, a destroyer who breaks the ice with wrathful horns. Ice, however, breaks bridges. If it chunks, if it floats, If there's a lot of permafrost, saturates and breaks down the wood over time. But then you see the sun come up, and it starts, the wood actually starts steaming, and you see the water evaporating off. O my brothers, is not everything in flux now? Have not all railings and bridges fallen into the water? Who could still cling to good and evil? Woe to us, hail to us, the thawing wind blows. Thus preach in every street, my brothers. The thawing wind blows. Only if it's warm. 9. There is an old illusion which is called good and evil. It's not an illusion, it's real. So far, the wheel of this illusion has revolved around soothsayers and stargazers. Once man believed in soothsayers and stargazers, and therefore believed all is destiny, you ought to, for you must. Then man again mistrusted all soothsayers and stargazers, and therefore believed all is freedom, you can, for you will. Look at that. All is freedom, you can, for you will. See, the atheist doesn't like it that religion controls them, puts parameters on their conduct and behavior. But clearly, humans must be regulated. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Oh my brothers, so far there have been only illusions about stars and the future, not knowledge. And therefore there have been only illusions so far, not knowledge about good and evil. So, only illusions, not real deep understanding of good and evil. 10. Thou shalt not rob, thou shalt not kill. Such words were once called holy. One bent the knee and head and took off one's shoes before them. But I ask you, where have there ever been better robbers and killers in this world than such holy words? Okay, he's definitely mad at the Christians. You know. Is there not in all life itself robbing and killing? And that such words were called holy was not truth itself, killed thereby? Or was it the preaching of death that was called holy, which contradicted and contravened all life? O my brothers, break the old tablets. So the old tablets, the 10 Commandments, you know, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, don't covet thy neighbor's wife. When it comes to the killing aspect, it's more of like murder, when you take the offensive without due right, you know. 11. This is my pity for all that is past. I see, because in the Bible you literally see wars. In the Old Testament there's battles. People are obviously dying. Warriors are obviously killing, right? So, you know. This is my pity for all that is past. I see how all of it is abandoned to the pleasure, the spirit, the madness of every generation. The madness of every generation. So we can ask ourselves, what is the madness of my generation? Hedonism, bodily butchery in terms of women removing their breasts, men becoming eunuchs. You know, that's the madness of this generation, which comes along and reinterprets all that has been as a bridge to itself. A great despot might come along, shrewd monster, who, according to his pleasure and displeasure, might constrain and strain all that is past till it becomes a bridge to him. Constrain and strain. So to constrain, to limit, to restrict. To strain, to really test the ability to uphold. Really tests the holding properties. Really stresses it out. Excessive testing of its durability. A harbinger and herald. A cockcrow. This, however, is the other danger, and what prompts my further pity. Whoever is of the rabble thinks back as far as the grandfather. With the grandfather, however, time ends. Thus all that is past is abandoned, for one day the rabble might become master and drown all time in shallow waters. The rabble, the inmates are running the asylum. Therefore, my brothers, a new nobility is needed to be the adversary of all rabble. So a new nobility, adversary of all rabble and all that is despotic. And to write anew upon new tablets the word noble. For many who are noble are indeed, and noble men of many kinds, that there may be a nobility. Or, as I once said in a parable, precisely this is godlike, that there are gods, but no God. 12. O my brothers, I dedicate and direct you to a new nobility. You shall become procreators and cultivators and sowers of the future. Procreators, cultivators, sowers. Sowers, you put the seeds down. You're proactive. You take the initiative. And then the cultivators are people who know the art of cultivation. Of the future. Verily, not to a nobility that you might buy like shopkeepers, and with shopkeepers gold. For whatever has its price has a little value. So whatever has its price has little value. How much will you trade for this? Oh, it's priceless. It's priceless. But then we also say everyone has a price. So maybe we're overvaluing ourselves. Not whence you come shall henceforth constitute your honor, but whither you are going. So it's not where you came from, It's where you're going that will determine your honor, essentially, he's saying. Your will and your foot, which has a will to go over and beyond yourselves, that shall constitute your new honor. Verily, not that you have served a prince. What do princes matter now? That's true. Do they matter now? Or that you become a bulwark for what stands, that it might stand more firmly. Not that your tribe has become courtly at court, and that you have learned, like a flamingo, to stand for long hours in a colorful costume in shallow ponds. That's a good line right there. The flamingo, shallow ponds. People at court, those fancy courts, they're pretty shallow, aren't they? If you think about how every woman had to dress really fancy, be adorned, and, you know, you're in the palace, whether you're in the Austrian palace, the French palace, the Italian court, you name it, English court, there's a bit of pompery to it. And the people are all surface level, scheming little fingers, and there's nothing really deep going on, is there? So that shallow pond has a double figure to it, doesn't it? The depths of the ocean of knowledge, right? It's vast. It's a sea of knowledge, we say. Surf the tides of life. All the colloquial phrases we have. The shallow pond of the court. And the flamingo does stand for a long time. For the ability to stand is meritorious among courtiers, and all courtiers believe that blessedness after death must comprise permission to sit. Permission to sit. Everyone must rise when the king enters. Nor that a spirit which they call holy led your ancestors into promised lands, which I do not praise, for where the worst of all trees grew, the cross, that land deserves no praise. And verily, wherever this Holy Spirit led his knights on all such crusades, goosades, goat, in leading the way, and the contrary, and crude sailed foremost. The crude sailed foremost, so the crudish ones joined the holy wars. He's really going at the Crusaders here, isn't he? O my brothers, your nobility should not look backward, but ahead. Exile shall you be from all father and forefathered lands. Your children's land shall you love. Your children's land shall you love. That's interesting. Don't look at where you're from, look at where you are. This love shall be your new nobility, the undiscovered land in which most distant see, for that I bid yourselves search and search. In your children you shall make up for being the children of your fathers. Thus shall you redeem all that is past. This new tablet I place over you. So, in your children you shall make up for being the children of your fathers. Generational trauma. So, fixing generational dysfunction and trauma. I made a video once called Men Different Than Our Fathers. You know, it's important for us. Also made a video called What Do You Do If You Come From a Sinful Family? What do you do if you are born of a mother who is a whore, father a womanizer, stuff like that. It's important for people to realize you're not doomed by what your ancestors did, but rather how you're going to take care of your children's childhood. You know, it's quite fascinating. You have a chance to repair your life, and don't live through your children, but live for your children. 13. Why live? All is vanity. That's nihilistic. Living that is threshing straw. Living that is consuming oneself in flames without becoming warm. Such antiquarian babbling is still considered wisdom. It is honored all the more for being old and musty. Mustiness, too, ennobles. mustiness, crustiness, dustiness. Children might speak thus. They fear the fire because it burned them. There is much childishness in the old books of wisdom. And why should those who always thresh straw be allowed to blaspheme threshing? Such auction should be muzzled, after all. Such men sit down to the table and bring nothing along, not even a good appetite. No, okay, I just thought of something. So if someone says, what do you bring to the table? Say, I bring a good appetite. And then they blaspheme. All is vanity, but eating and drinking well, O my brothers, is verily not a vain art. Break the old tablets, and never the happy. So, eating and drinking is an art. Eating and drinking is an art. Now I'll take that as like liquids, not as alcohol. You probably would take it as alcohol. As a mom, you're gonna interpret that as making pressed juices, great teas, great smoothies, you name it, right? Eggnog without the rum. Trying out some handcrafted soda with cane sugar with real vanilla extract. You get me? Because there's a reason why it's called culinary arts, right? To the clean all is clean, the people say, but I say unto you, 14, to the mean all becomes mean. Therefore the swooners and the head-hangers, whose hearts also hang limply, preach, the world itself is a filthy monster, for all these have an unclean spirit. But especially those who have neither rest nor repose, except when they see the world from abaft, the afterworldly. To these I say to their faces, even though it may not sound nice, the world is like a man and having a backside abaft. That much is true. There is much filth in the world. That much is true. But that does not make the world itself a filthy monster. I like how he repeats twice, that much is true. So, that sounds a bit hopeful. Don't doom the whole earth. It's kind of like how people are like, oh, humanity is a virus. And it's like, so you're telling me when you see a cute little 2-year-old holding a bunny rabbit, you're saying that's a virus? They always say it after after they see like pollution in the ocean or something. Or they see somebody like factory farming. But then they don't say nothing when it's the farmer helping a goat calf properly, birth their kid properly. A baby goat's called a kid. And they're, it's stormy night and the farmer's doing everything he can to keep that troubled baby goat alive. They don't look at that. They don't highlight the beauty. They like to highlight the soul-crushing stuff and then say humans don't deserve to exist. It's very bizarre behavior. There is wisdom in this, that there is much in the world that smells foul. Nausea itself creates wings, and water divining powers. Even in the best there is still something that nauseates, and even the best is something that must be overcome. O my brothers, there is much wisdom in this, that there is much filth in the world. Yeah, of course, it's very observable. There's a hadith that says, and essentially by the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that is sahih, that earth is the infidel's paradise and the believer's prison. 15. Such maxims I heard pious, afterworldly people speak to their conscience. Verily, without treachery or falseness, although there is nothing falser in the whole world, nothing more treacherous, let the world go its way. Do not raise one finger against it. That sounds like go with the flow. Let him who wants to strangle and stab and fleece and flay the people. Now, that's not good. That's not sound. You know. Do not raise one finger against it. Thus will they learn to renounce the world. And your own reason, you yourself should stifle and strangle it, for it is a reason of this world. Thus will you yourself learn to renounce the world. Break, break, O my brothers, these old tablets of the pious. Break the maxims of those who slander the world. So, it's very apparent that Nietzsche has a big problem with Christians, okay? He's very, nihilistic. He's not a very happy camper. And he is wise himself, I'd argue, but it is fascinating how he doesn't see some of the wisdom at all in Christianity. But I do agree with a lot of his points on Christians themselves. I think Muslim men are stronger than Christian men, and Muslim women are stronger against lust and attention seeking and adultery than Christian women, who they're not like the Christian women of the past. So they always trash in half their book. Christians hate the Old Testament. They're ashamed of it, even though it's the same God, right? Same God that decreed that for the Old Testament. They're like, no, New Testament, They're so ashamed of the Old Testament. Like, how could this be said by our God? It's like, how can you just be ashamed of your religion and then call people to it? It don't make no sense. So, the slandering of the world, you can love the world, but you don't have to be of the world. As we Muslims believe, we're just a passing traveler. You're only here for a short time. So don't get muddled down in materialism, because it's not a sustainable model. 16. Whoever learns much will unlearn all violent desires. That's like saying you'll read so much that you'll just become a pacifist. I don't agree with that. That is whispered today in all the dark lanes. Wisdom makes weary. Worthwhile is nothing. Thou shalt not desire. This new tablet I found hanging even in open marketplaces. Okay, wisdom makes weary. So the burden of truth, the burden of knowledge, responsibility of information, the weight of information. Worthwhile is nothing. All is futile. All is futile. Now let's think about that. Futility. When I have these thoughts, like, let me give you a story time, because I think that's the only thing that's worthwhile is our good deeds that will help us on Judgment Day. But our mistakes are also worthwhile because we can help others to be protected from something we learned the hard way, okay? But there's a Linkin Park song, nothing in the end, it doesn't even matter, I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end it doesn't even matter. Yeah, there was a Linkin Park song that was popular in the 90s, I believe. I remember listening to it, and there's a ring of truth to that. Because people who put their careers over their children, you're going to be replaced as soon as you die. The company will move on and forget about you. You won't be special. Like, if you look at McDonald's, no one even remembers the story of how it all started. It doesn't really matter. And no one knows who the CEO is now. No one remembers the fry cook. I've often said it's your children who will remember you while they're tiny. No one in this world will love you like your small children will. You are their hero. They can grow up to forget about you, for whatever reason, by the permission of Allah. But while they are small, you are their most favorite person. No one can care about you more. And raising children is never futile. When they get to the teenage years, it's when the testing comes. You know, teenagers are horrible. But when it comes to work, you get a certain fruit of your labor. Like if you can see, you watered a tree and it grew. But at the same time, lightning can strike it, termites can get it, it can get a disease, it can pass away. But think about how hard some people can work for a promotion, how much they, really just cross their T's and dot their I's for the manager, and were just totally overlooked for the flatterer. And everything they did wasn't acknowledged and doesn't care. Like in the movie The Whale with Brendan Fraser, he was a teacher, grading people's papers and stuff. He sent out an email that had a couple swearing saying, "Write me something effing honest." And he was fired over that. And that's a tiny, insignificant part of the film overall. But how easy a company will ditch you. How fast a sponsor will drop you. How fast the mobs will cancel you. And everything you did, it won't matter. They'll forget about it. Cultural amnesia. That's why I have a lot of mystery, and I ponder about St. Thomas Aquinas, St. Augustine, Aristotle, Plato, Marcus Aurelius, Sun Tzu. Even if you think about Karl Marx, you think about these people who their names lived on after they died. Either in infamy or notoriety or nobility or something else that they did. Alexander the Great. All of them. Who kept their name alive. All that good stuff. But how many silent heroes we never really knew. But Allah is swift in accounting. So whatever is of value that we did, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is gonna reward us for that. But on the reverse side, whatever we did that is bad is there waiting for us. So in the Akhirah, in the afterlife, we will have a different sort of accounting, won't we? But if it's not going to be something that Allah is going to reward you for, then it is nothing. Thou shalt not desire. That's an interesting one. That sounds very Buddhistic in a way. To stop grasping. Break, O my brothers, break this new tablet too. The world weary hung it up, and the preachers of death, and also the jailers, for behold, it is also an extortion to the bondage, because they learned badly. And the best things not at all, and everything too early, and everything too hastily, because they ate badly. Therefore they upset stomachs, for their spirit is an upset stomach, which counsels death. Their spirit is an upset stomach. For verily, my brothers, the spirit is a stomach, life is a well of joy. But for those out of whom an upset stomach speaks, which is the father of melancholy, all wells are poisoned. So the stomach speaks. Now, the gut biome being linked to your mood is something that many have talked about in the past. That how you treat your stomach, your That's why kombucha has really a lot of probiotics, fermented foods, things that really help your gut, is it affects your mood. So if you have an upset stomach all the time, you know, you're not going to really be a happy camper. Because who really can be happy with a sour stomach? You know, your appetite, your stomach reflects certain appetites, doesn't it? So on a metaphorical level, you can kind of see what he's talking about. To gain knowledge is a joy for the lion-willed. I agree. But those who have become weary are themselves merely being willed, and all the billows play with them. And this is always the manner of the weak. They get lost on the way, and in the end their weariness still asks, why did we ever pursue any way at all? It is all the same. Their ears appreciate the preaching. Nothing is worthwhile, you shall not will. Yet this is an exhortation to bondage. If you don't will, someone will will you. So I think that's what he means by the bondage. We are slaves of Allah, not slaves to our own minds. If you're a slave to your own mind, then the whims and desires that others can, what is that word? Incept into you and suggest to you, like you're very suggestible, you're very gullible, you're very naive, you're very too trusting. This is how you can be taken advantage of. But if you're a slave of Allah and you obey the will of Allah, you're not going to be in the same type of bondage as you would to like earthly desires, earthly things, I'd argue. O my brothers, like a fresh roaring wind, Zarathustra comes to all who are weary of the way. Now, the way, when you look at what is the way, you begin to realize the Tao Te Ching, however you pronounce it. There's a lot of things that talk about the way. In Islam, we have the path of Islam, the one way to paradise, right? There's all these ways. And so when he talks about that, you know, the weary of the way, you can look at that in so many different ways. Many noses will yet make sneeze, through walls too. My free breath blows, and into prisons, and in prison spirits. To will liberates. To will liberates. For to will is to create. Thus I teach, and you shall learn solely in order to create. And you shall first learn from me how to learn well. He that has ears to hear, let him hear. So if you look at that, it's very unique because you do realize that there is a certain aspect of, if you want to listen and get advice, you're going to do that, but you got to also learn how to learn. You know, you can't just be spoon-fed information. It makes me think of the videos I did around study habits. When a student fails, it's not always the fault of the teacher, you know, but that relationship of whose fault is it? Is it the curriculum? Is it the teacher? Is it the other students? Is it that person's IQ? You know, is it stress? How to teach and how to learn, you know, is very important. I like that, because asking questions, being inquisitive, not just parroting things you've memorized, but really getting into the nitty-gritty of knowledge. Very great section, I must say. I hope you enjoyed, and please like, comment, subscribe, and share. If you'd like to support my work and read other things that I write, you can go to the blog at www.subscribestar.com/Milahan Archive. Hope to see you there.